course, really excited about this session here today. And we are going to cover a very important topic, which I think we all can relate to, and that is the topic of sugar. And we're titling this sugar not as sweet as we think, or the bitter truth about sugar. Because I think all of us in one way or another are aware of the fact that sugar is something that is not good for us. We have heard that said. And we are not going to discuss why sugar is good or not good today. But the reality is that most of us would have sweet cravings hitting us, especially after a big meal. Others of us struggle with massive cravings in the late afternoon for a snack. For others, it's late night that craving kicks in. And sometimes we fight it off with self-discipline, and sometimes we give into it. I personally have a very big problem with sugar cravings. I found really smart ways to manage it, and I'm going to see if we have time. I'm going to share some of my tricks for dealing with sugar cravings and reducing sugar consumption later in this talk. But I think the main point of this talk today is not that I'm going to tell you to stop eating sugar or even to reduce sweets. That's up to you. I'm also not going to tell you that sugar is bad. You already know that. But the fact is this, that sugar and refined carbs that we eat so much of cause inflammation in the body. And chronic inflammation is one of the main causes of death and disease. So in this talk today, what we're going to do is that we're going to discuss two things instead. We are going to discuss how our sugar and our hidden sugar consumption is much higher than we think. I'll give you some facts on that. And the second thing is what we will discuss is that we get those sugar cravings, and that is actually normal why we get those cravings, but it's good to be aware of it. And we're going to discuss some strategies on how it can be avoided. And finally, we are going to speak about some solutions, what to do when those sugar cravings kick in. Because as I mentioned, we all know eating too much sugar is not good. And we're going to speak about a hormone or a neurotransmitter called serotonin, which is a key hormone or a neurotransmitter that stabilizes our mood, feelings of well-being, happiness, and make us feel good. All of us want us to feel happy, obviously. But if you are serotonin deficient or depressed, your brain is going to scream out for ways to boost your serotonin levels any way you can. And eating more carbohydrates and eating more sugar is actually a quick fix to increase serotonin levels. It's not a good long-term solution, but it's a quick fix. So we are going to speak about some solutions how you can naturally, in much better ways than eating sugar, increase your serotonin levels. So now if you look at sugar and the consumption of sugar in the world, this is just the last 100 years of sugar consumption. Look at what has happened. This is the worldwide sugar consumption. I've only gone up to year 2000 because after year 2000 it gets complicated because sugar is no longer sugar. There are more than 56 different names that are legally allowed for food companies to declare on food labels. That is not called sugar, it's called other things. So it's actually going up and up even after year 2000. This is a very interesting graph. This is sugar consumption in the world. And the second small graph that starts, year 1900, the last 100 years, is obesity percentage. And isn't it incredible to see the correlation between obesity? I'm not speaking about, you have 1 kilo. Let's speak about obesity. The correlation between obesity in the world and sugar consumption. It's a straight correlation. As you can see, obesity did not exist. It was like 5% of the population, 100 years ago. Today, it's 35–40% of the population, and it's a direct linkage to sugar consumption. Now, most of us, when we think about sugar, we are not going to do this. When you feel like eating sugar, you're not going to go to the cupboard and take a spoon and eat sugar. We speak about, the medical association speaks about that you should limit your sugar intake to 9 teaspoons per day, maximum if you're a male. That's the optimum. More than that is not good. If you're a woman, actually slightly less. We are not eating teaspoons of sugar, but yet we end up eating sugars in everything. Many people have a misconception that this is much better than this. Now, coconut sugar, honey, jaggery is obviously much better than white sugar. There's no question about that. It's better. But when it's marketed as healthy and as health food, it's a straight lie. There is really, this brown sugar here has pretty much exactly the same effect on the body, on the blood sugar levels, as refined sugar would have. Coconut sugar has almost the same glycemic index, slightly less than the normal refined sugar. It has some extra minerals, but you would need to consume massive amounts of coconut sugar or jaggery to get the benefits of that. I heard someone say the other day that jaggery is good for your liver. Maybe, maybe not, but that person was about 15 kilos overweight who made that statement. So it's better, but it's not health foods. We can discuss this later in the talk. But this is basically, brown sugar is basically white sugar with molasses, maybe 5% molasses. And it's slightly better, but not much, not much more so. Now, what we are going to speak about now is, different. We are going to speak about the hidden sugars that we have. And it's important to understand one thing, that the food industry wants us, doesn't want us to eat sugar. That's not the point. The big food companies are not trying to destroy your health. That's not their purpose. The big food companies' purpose is to sell their product, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, a strategy to sell your product today, it doesn't even need to be a sweet. It could be many, many different products, is to make it so tasty that people want to buy more, or even better, make it addictive. Now, since sugar is addictive, the food companies early on figured out that it was smart to add sugar, because the more sugar they could add in more clever ways, the more I want to come back and eat their food. And we are looking at an epidemic today where many people, especially children below 15, are getting hopelessly hooked on sugar. They made a lot of scientific experiments on sugar addiction. And they have found that sugar addiction can be compared to, drug addiction. Really, they made a big scientific experiment with rats. I'm not in support of these experiments. I'm just sharing what, the experiment was. And they actually made, cocaine, which is a very habit-forming drug, available to rats, and sugar. And they forced them to take both. And they found that a large percentage of the rats actually ended up choosing sugar over cocaine. They could live without the cocaine, but they could not live without the sugar. That's how addictive it is. So when we look at the food industry, and we are speaking about hidden sugars, it's very important to understand that sugar is in everything we eat. Anyone who knows what is the average consumption of sugar in India today, feel free to type it in the chat box here on the call. If you know the answer, chat it, type it out. It's actually less here in India than it is in countries like US still. But the average consumption is about 20 to 21 kilos of sugar per adult per year. And someone told me the other day, oh, I'm only buying about, 4 kilos of sugar per month for my family of 4. That would be, 1 kilo per month. That's 12 kilos per year. So I'm less. No, it's not true, because then you end up eating sugar from so many things. I would say whatever sugar you buy, multiply that by 4, and that's your real actual sugar consumption. Because we have things like this. Look at this. How many people have tried this? I'm not speaking about any specific brand. I'm just speaking about a cookie that is supposed to be healthy. Many of us have grown up eating this cookie with tea. That's what happened to me in Sweden. That's what happened to you in India as well. It's inexpensive. It's marketed as healthy, with the goodness of 10 vitamins, 0 trans fats. Wow. And it doesn't taste sweet. You know that food companies have, they do thousands of trials for the sweetness of products, and they test it on thousands of people. Then you have mathematicians so skillfully figure out on the bell curve, which is a sweet spot, which is a spot where most people say, I want one more of this cookie. If it's too sweet, you'll eat only one. If it's slightly less sweet than you want, you will crave one more. This is not tasting so sweet. How many of you eat one of this if it's put in front of you? Raise your hand if you do. I don't. This is put in front of me. I'm going to eat at least 3 or 4 because with the goodness of, whole wheat, with the goodness of no trans fat, with the goodness of 10 vitamins. Now, if you check the label, what this contains, it's 81% refined carbohydrates, maida. It is 21% sugar, meaning 21 grams added sugar per 100 grams. It is, listen to this, more than 10% fat. Okay, what fat? Palm oil, palmolene. This is the worst kind of fat that you could possibly consume. You know that the cheap palm oils that is used by the food industry in the food that you eat every single day when you go outside, your namkins, cooks, baked goods, restaurants, palm oil is beautiful. It's a darling of the food industry. It's cheap. It has got a smooth, silky taste. You love it. It's everywhere. It doesn't turn rancid. It's got a very high flame point, so they can heat it up and reheat it and cook it all over again. Now, the problem is that palm oil in a cooking like this is as bad as smoking cigarettes if you consume a lot of it. I mean, Dr. Girish or Dr. Raji could come in at the end and we can do a Q&A, and they can give you some idea about what the effect that trans fatty acids and palm oil has on your body. So it's 20% sugar. Though it doesn't taste so sweet, and it's high in bad fats. And people eat this, and someone texted here in the chat box that, eating 3 of these is, 1 gram of sugar or 1 teaspoon of sugar. So if you eat 3 of these per day, that's 365 teaspoons of sugar per year. That's 1 kilo of sugar per year, just by eating 3 of this per year. And it's not any sugar, it's the worst kind of cheap sugar that you could possibly use. What about things like, I'm not going to speak about any brand here or anything, but this you have all seen, rusks, Now, with the goodness of whole wheat, premium baked rusk, 0% trans fat, wow. However, 21% added sugar and, 10% oil again. And how come if it's rusk that it has got 0% fiber in it? How can it be? It's no fiber. It's only highly processed refined carbohydrates and bad fats and sugars. And this is what people eat every day with their tea. And they think that it's like kind of healthy. It's a disaster. And you end up consuming bad sugars every single day. Now, the food industry has to declare sugar on the labels, but sugar has different names. Sugar, anything that says os is sugar. Dextrose, fructose, galactose, glucose, sucrose. Then you have corn syrup solids, you have crystalline fructose, you have corn syrup, you have evaporated cane juice, you have fruit juice concentrates. Doesn't it sound good? Fruit juice concentrates, with the goodness of fruit juice concentrates. Okay, it's highly processed sugar, even if it's called fruit juice concentrates. Rice syrup, sugar. High fructose corn syrup, sugar. High fructose corn syrup, that's the sugar that is used for almost all the soft drinks that your children end up drinking, or your other people's children end up drinking, and it's worse than sugar. So I'm just mentioning this to start with, because, before we start to speak about tips to reduce sugar, my point with this is to let you know that you may think that you're not eating sugar. You may think, and you may, rightly think that, you're not the person who deliberately add sugar to your screen. You're not having this problem. You're not eating spoons of sugar every single day. However, in a sense, you end up eating the same equivalent all the time without even thinking about it. It's everywhere. And the food companies puts it in our food because it's addictive, and we want to come back and we want to eat more and more and more. And maybe I will take a question for Dr. Raji at the end of this talk on the effect that sugar consumption has on children, because very often we see a little child who is active and he's 5 or 6 years old, and the parents are like, oh, look at little Ashok, he's a bundle of energy. No, little Ashok is on a sugar high very often, and he's becoming more and more addicted to sugary foods. But the effects of all this sugar is not going to hit now. It's going to come 10 or 15 years later. And I want to ask Dr. Raji, who is one of the top experts on nutritional medicine. She's a PhD in cellular nutrition. has 2 MS degrees. She has done research papers. I want to ask her towards the end of this talk in 5 minutes from now, what are the effects of sugar consumption, excess sugar consumption on children? Because it's almost impossible to prevent your children from eating a lot of sugar. We try, but we cannot always succeed, even Pramila and I. So now we're going to speak about why we are craving sweets, for example, after we eat. I see a lot of people who, eat fruits, and it's good to eat fruits, but they eat it straight after lunch because they get the sugar craving. I see a lot of people who, they eat a big meal. I have many South Indian friends, and, before the lockdown, I had dinner with someone, a good friend. And we sat down and we had dahl, we had the whole Indian meal, sat on the floor, we ate together. And when I was absolutely full, then it started for him. A big plate of rice comes in, and I'm like, no, I cannot eat anything more. And he has to have that big serving of rice. Why? Because the body wants more sugar and more carbohydrates after a big meal. It's not just a tradition, it becomes almost like an addiction to get more of these carbs. And I'm going to explain why. First of all, when we eat a large meal, why do we get sugar cravings after a large meal? Because first of all, the number one function of the body that takes the most energy after a big meal is digestion. And because digestion takes so much energy, the body craves an energy spike, which it can get from sugar quickly. It's immediate energy. So after a meal, we need more energy to digest the food. So the body craves instant carbs and sugars. That's one reason. But the number one reason that people get cravings after food is because we eat the wrong food in our meals. Now, yesterday, Pramila went through a lot of food plates on the Food for Life community, and we commented on different food plates. Now, the point was not don't eat carbohydrates. I eat a lot of carbohydrates. I believe carbohydrates is really important, but you need to eat the right type of carbohydrates, not just refined, carbohydrates. And you need to eat more of other things than only carbohydrates. So the smallest problem we have is to end up eating too little carbohydrates. No one does. So we want you to be mindful. I want to be mindful of not eating the wrong carbohydrates and too much of it. So when we eat a heavy carb-rich meal, we eat a large portion of rice, white rice, we eat the dahl, which is also very high in carbohydrates, or we eat pasta, we eat the chappati. You set yourself up for guaranteed sweet cravings after that meal, and I'll explain to you why. Because what happens is that when you eat a big meal like that with refined carbs only, you get huge blood sugar spikes in your blood sugar levels. And this makes you feel fantastic. But have you noticed what happens after a very big meal, after 10, 15 minutes? You start to crave to eat something sweet. It's a craving. And that's because after finish eating, your blood sugar levels drop and your body is not happy with these dipping glucose levels. And it wants to get back to this soaring high that it had. So the body craves more sugar now to get back. So the problem is this: when you overeat too much carbs in a meal, instead of the body saying, stop, you had enough carbs, it actually craves instant energy to get the blood sugar levels up that crash back up again. And it wants more sweets, which is the exact opposite of what is good for you after a big meal. So what we say to reduce sugar cravings after you eat more protein in your meal, eat more fats. What I did today, I had brown rice or black rice, which makes me eat less rice. But I had a big serving of black rice for lunch today. I put a large spoon, 2 spoons of ghee on it, because oils and proteins, good fats and proteins, don't makes your blood sugar spike. It makes you full. It gives you even energy. And I ate less energy, then I fill half of my plate with vegetables. So eat more protein, eat more vegetables, and eat more fats, and reduce the amount of simple complex carbohydrates in your meal, and you will have less blood sugar spikes, and you will get less food cravings after you eat. This is not a theory. You can try it on yourself, and it is going to be 100%. I even see it on our children. When we give them a large portion of white rice and lots of carbs in a meal, or pasta, which happens, they come to us like after 20 minutes, please give us something sweet, give us something sweet. It's like they are begging for something sweet. But when we give the right things and the right proportion in the meal, you don't get these massive spikes, as we see. Now, let's finally now speak, and then we are through. We'll take some Q&As on sugar, and I will take the help of the doctors on this. Let's speak about serotonin now. Now, it's a neurotransmitter. It's a hormone which is associated with mood elevation. And the reason people eat sugar when they are depressed or want sweets when they're depressed is because the sugar helps to increase the serotonin levels in the brain. So you feel good when you do it. Even from complex carbohydrates, it gives a feel-good feeling. So now what we're going to do is to speak about some solutions to increase your serotonin levels which without eating sugar. Because if you can increase those levels, you will have less sugar cravings. And I'm going to go through 5 things quickly, and then we are through. Number 1, focus on your gut health. If your gut health is healthy, then it will help serotonin production, because 95% of the serotonin production is in the gut. So it is important that we maximize the health of our gut. How? Eat foods that are rich in omega-3. Personally, I supplement, with omega-3 supplement for the last 20 years of my life. As a result, my HSCRP levels, my inflammation levels are near zero, honestly. I do tests regularly, and I got almost no inflammation in my body. And the same with Camilla, same with everyone I know who takes enough potent doses of omega-3, because omega-3 helps to reduce inflammation in the body. And that's one way also to improve gut health. And secondly, of course, you eat vegetables and the right fibers, which are, prebiotics that will help the gut flora. That's number 1. Number 2, and we speak about this a lot in the community, we speak about how to increase gut health by eating more vegetables, eat more complex carbs, eat, unpolished carbs that are not being refined, not destroyed, and not, all the nutrition removed from it. Number 1. Number 2, eat adequate amounts of protein. Now, yesterday in the call we had, some people had really good legitimate questions on protein. What happens if I eat too much? Now, there is no risk of eating too much protein. I am very deliberate about my protein intake. I eat eggs every single day. I don't like to eat meats, so I eat a lot of eggs. I take a plant protein powder. I take whey protein after exercise. Still, there are a few days I get up to my optimal levels. And people who don't pay attention to it, they are always 30% or 40% less than they need to be. Now, why is it important for serotonin production and levels with protein? Because serotonin is synthesized from an amino acid called tryptophan. Now, tryptophan is in protein. It's one of the essential amino acids, but it's not in all protein sources. For example, it's not very high in dahls. Soy, it's high in soy. It's high in eggs. It's high in certain plant protein powders, like the one that we personally use from Nutrilite. It's got the high levels of tryptophan in it. And basically, tryptophan is needed to produce serotonin. So, we looked at the plates yesterday in the community, and very, very few of those plates had enough protein on them, honestly. So it's number 2, eat enough protein and pay attention to your protein intake. If you're a vegetarian, find intelligent ways to supplement. Now, number 3, avoid or limit refined carbs. That's one way to help you. So eating complex carbs that contain fiber will help the blood glucose levels in your blood to you will not have blood sugar spikes after your meals. Number 4, to help serotonin production and levels in your body that makes you feel happy and energetic is supplementation. Through quality, naturally derived supplements such as vitamin C helps to support the conversion of tryptophan into serotonin. So vitamin C is also important for immunity in those pandemic times. I take about 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day. Pramila takes the same. It's important. B vitamins is important to break down carbohydrates for your body to use as fuel. Vitamin D is also important for serotonin production. And these are the basic supplements that I think everyone needs to take for basic immunity and health, but it also helps in this case. And now finally, and then we are through with this call, we have the final one, and that is Exercise. You want to boost your serotonin levels. This is the biggest one by far. Nothing can compare to it. Exercise is unbelievably powerful. It has a direct impact on 3 major neurotransmitters, and serotonin is one of them. So some of you would have noticed that days that you are physically active, this is very, very interesting, that days you are physically active and you have maybe gone for a very brisk walk or you did a run, you crave less sugar. Have you noticed that? You should crave more, but you crave less. It's for this reason, because now your body, serotonin production has increased because of the exercise. And you're not craving quick fixes from bad carbohydrates and sweets anymore. All of a sudden, you're free to, eat healthy food. So exercise actually reduces your sugar cravings. In my case, it's a 100% fact. In other people's cases, it's a fact. Dr. Girish, who is one of the top neurologists in the country, maybe can comment on this afterwards as well. It is a fact. So if you exercise, you will increase serotonin levels, you will crave less sugar, and you will also burn more calories, of course, you'll be more healthy. But studies have found that like high intensity exercise for like 30 minutes has the same impact on the body as taking antidepressants. Maybe in India, it's not as big a problem as it is in the West yet, fortunately. But you know that like 10-15% of the population in the US and Europe are taking antidepressants. Many of them could avoid that disastrous lifestyle by simply exercising and not get addicted to things that will not give you a long-term solution. So exercise is something that we really promote. But taking a slow walk for 30 minutes will not increase your serotonin levels much. You need to get your heart rate up. It has to be aerobic exercise. It has to be a push. It's not enough to just walk slowly for 30 minutes. It's good, but it's not going to really do the job in terms of what we are speaking about right now. So finally, I want to mention 2 things that are really, really key. 2 tips and tricks that I use when I get sugar cravings personally. And I was originally going to do a habit formation talk today about how to form new habits, but this went out of control with sugar. So let me just speak about 2. There are 4 habit formation rules or principles that I usually speak about. I will speak about 2 ones quickly today in regards to how you can stop yourself from eating junk food when that sugar craving hits in the afternoon. Now, one rule is to advise you to stop a bad habit is to swap it with a good habit. So you don't try to stop the habit. You just change what it is you do. So for example, I have a strategy that I take when I get the sugar craving sometimes in the afternoon. I take a piece of, dark chocolate. I'm not advertising this brand, but, I'm just saying, don't buy, Amol dark chocolate, which is full of sugar to make you addicted to it and low quality. Buy a quality dark chocolate. I'm not saying this brand, but buy something that works. And I just take half a piece per day. And it kills my sugar cravings. I feel good. Some people just take a cup of herbal tea or something. There are many things you can use as a substitute when you get the craving. Buy a sugar-free gum and start to eat the chewing gum when you get the sugar craving. I did that for a long time. That's another way. So the principle is don't try to kick the habit, replace the habit. Now, the second aspect would be on stopping a bad habit is to make it complicated. This is one of the top rules of habit formation is to make it so difficult to engage in the bad habit that you won't do it. So for example, if you have a problem with eating sweets, don't keep them at home. You go to our fridge right now, we have a very big fridge. Trust me, Pramila stores a lot of stuff in that fridge. And I love ice cream. If I get a craving for ice cream right now, there is no ice cream in our fridge. There is no regular chocolate in our fridge. We have no chips in the cupboard. And sometimes I'm like, but it's too complicated to go out and buy it and come back with it. So you can avoid it. So step number 2 is make it complicated to engage in the bad habit. Don't keep junk food at home if you have a problem with eating junk food. And then it gets more difficult to eat it. So hope that helps. We'll take some Q&As here on sugar. I'm going to actually stop the YouTube live broadcast here. And so you can ask your questions without feeling